Alright, more has come out on the Gojo vs Sukuna interview by Gege, so let's get it. Once again, take this all with a grain of salt. It was posted by Myth. He did say it was rough translation, so there are chances that there could be errors in this. Let's start at the top. It says, I'll share some impressions and spoilers from the new info at the Jujutsu Kaisen exhibition in Osaka. These are my thoughts based on what I remember, so it might not be perfectly accurate. The questions asked were different for each person interviewed, so I'm unsure if the ones I was curious about will come up again. What left the strongest impression was about Sukuna's mummified body. So right here they double down, they say the most striking new info was about Sukuna's mummified body. When asked why he became a mummified Buddha, Akutami sensei explained that when a person makes a pact with a curse, part of their body becomes cursed. In Sukuna's case, it's his fingers. Other sorcerers also have cursed body parts, but Sukuna alone has multiple cursed objects. That actually is kind of funny because there could be some freaky ass cursed objects out there if there was some freaky curses. Sukuna's remains were kept by a subordinate after his death. However, after that subordinate died, the whereabouts of the remains became unknown. In other words, they weren't buried in a grave. It seems like someone later dug them up, and when Sukuna was revived, people saw his own remains and thought he was a mummified Buddha, worshipping him as such. That apparently made Sukuna laugh like lol. Sukuna getting a little more personality in here. This is something that I would expect from Gege because he is Sukuna's biggest glazer. It's not clear why his body ended up in the Sky Realm. In other words, it's called Tenjo, but apparently the subordinate was still alive after Sukuna's death, possibly an old lady who lived a really long time. Since Yorozu, and then in parentheses it says from the Heian era, and the woman in the Sky Realm look alike, there's a strong possibility that she's the subordinate's descendant. Also, the kanji for ice is used in both names, which adds to that theory. There was also a question about Tenjo, but the reason Sukuna is called the Fallen Angel wasn't clearly explained. However, it was memorable that the angels are considered sorcerers from the Middle East. It seems that in the Heian period there was no interaction with the Middle East, but the idea that angels can fly was just kind of tossed in. It felt pretty random. I really hope that there's a little bit more on that from the Middle East because that just adds so much more world building to the story. And it doesn't even necessarily have to be at the exhibition. Just one day, if he does like a one shot talking about it, that world building would be insane. There were also questions about Gojo, Geto, and Nan, but they didn't leave much of an impression. I can't really remember, just that it felt like that's not quite what I expected. I'll check again during the second half of the exhibit. You see, that's why we take some of this with a grain of salt, because what's interesting to us is not interesting to everybody. So hopefully they remember and hopefully more details come out about that, because I definitely want to know about it. There was a joke question about the Baka survivor, and the answer was, it was probably that. Just because Takaba uses it doesn't mean it's a threat. He just wanted to parody manga. They even got permission from the creator of Babo 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 Babo. Takaba apparently doesn't understand jujutsu or sorcery at all. It's just vibes. Very fitting. He wore white because Akutami wanted to clearly show he's not going to fight. Not new info, but Megami's sister Sumiki's base character was inspired by Ukatake's younger sister from Bleach, and also includes elements from Rukia. Sukuna was always meant to target Fushiguro from the beginning, even before Gojo died. Which, I mean, it was foreshadowed from the jump, so we did know that. That's my rough summary based on memory. I'll check the second half later. Osaka's new info isn't in the guidebook. Maybe it'll be added later, but I jotted it down just in case I forget. And they ended it talking about the struggles of trying to translate and concentrate because how many people were there and how many people were talking. I'm positive that there's a lot more that we haven't gotten yet. This was just somebody who was trying to make it through the exhibition, and there's a lot of people, so they're bound to miss some things. So thank you to the person who went and jotted down everything that stuck out to them. I really appreciate it. I personally think it's really cool that we got some new intel on Sukuna's mummified body and kind of how it got to that point. And also, the stuff with the Middle East is really interesting. I hope we get a lot more on that. So if you watched this far, thank you. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments, and I'm going to continue updating you guys as we get more because there will be a lot more details coming out as the days go on. Peace.